So I was on eBay the other day, I was looking for something completely unrelated when I happened to come across this little skeleton mini. I was going to say metal skeleton and somehow come out with skeletal. There we go. So this little skeletal, which of course we all know stands for metal skeleton. And it struck me that this is the most beautiful little metal skeleton mini that I've ever seen in my life, and I fell in love with it straight away, so I had to have it. It just has Rackham 99 on the tag. I need to look up who Rackham are, see if they've got any more miniatures, because that's gorgeous, and if that's what the rest of the work's like, then I might be looking into buying some more of their minis. I also, completely unrelated note, found these wings, which I also thought were kind of cute. They weren't that expensive, so I chucked those in the basket as well. It wasn't until I actually got them in my hands, because I didn't really have a plan for them. It was literally just, oh, that's nice, gorgeous, oh, they're pretty, I'll have those as well. And it wasn't until I got them in my hands that I realised, oh, they go together to make a little angel of death. And it looks gorgeous. I know that some people, an angel of death might conjure up like dark images, something a bit morbid. But for me, I thought, oh, look at the position of that skeleton. He's looking over something. He's watching something. He or she, they're clearly officiating a wedding, of course. And if it's the angel of death that's officiating a wedding, surely that's got to be like a zombie wedding. Of course, 2 zombies getting married. How beautiful, how sweet. I mean, yeah, it's got to be. So that's what I've decided to make. And for the scythe, because every angel of death needs to have a scythe, I've got this old Games Workshop Citadel miniature where it's just an old skeleton warrior where the scythe is already broken, and I figured that's going to be perfect for my little angel of death. Found it! I'm Trej, by the way. Iris, she's not here, she's fast asleep because it's like 2:30 in the morning. But yeah, welcome to the Nocturnal Space Workshop. So on the wings there's this huge block there, which obviously was meant to go into the rest of the model, for whatever model this actually came from. I'd love to know if you're aware of what this model came from, then leave a comment below. Let me know, because I am curious to see where these wings actually came from originally. But yeah, I don't need this huge block of metal that's there. In fact, if anything, that block of metal is going to get in the way, so I'm going to have to chop that off. Also, you see his skull is actually attached to the spear shaft, which is obviously going to be the scythe. Now that's obviously structural, but also for the casting process. The question is, do I want to cut that off, or do I leave it in there as part of a relic of the good old days of metal casting? Decisions. So these have turned out really nice and shiny. I'm really happy with how they've turned out after they've had that isopropyl alcohol. I feel like I'm slurring my words, like I've been drinking the isopropyl alcohol. These have turned out really nice and shiny, I was trying to say. I'll probably cut that bit out though, so you'll never hear it. They've turned out really nice and shiny. I'm really happy with how they've turned out after being cleaned up by the isopropyl alcohol. I'm just going to quickly glue them together, probably using a little bit of the old bicarbonate of soda just to give it a bit of grip. But I'm really happy with that. Oh yeah, I need to chop off the end of the spear for that as well. Right, whereabouts will that go then? Don't be precious, just give it a chop. Oh, that fits perfectly. Oh, look at that. Nice. Okay, where's... Hi. Change of plan now, because the... turns out the bicarbonate of soda is really difficult to get into the gap between the wings and the skeleton. So instead I'm just going to go for the spray activator, and then I'll bulk it up with the bicarbonate of soda afterwards, more than likely. See how it goes. Here he is assembled for the first time, and I could not be happier with how that's come together. I'm just going to fill in this little gap here where the top of the scythe joins onto the staff there. Now for this I am going to use not green stuff, I'm going to use bicarbonate of soda. I'm just going to put a little bit of super glue on, a little bit of bicarbonate of soda, and then that will set, and I can just go in with a file and file it down nice and smooth. But yeah, I really could not be happier for how that's turned out. I think that's really, really a cool model. Okay, and with that, look at that. It's like it was always part of it. Almost forgot, just to give it a quick polish, go over it with an emery board, and that just gets rid of any little scratches, from the metal file. For the bride and groom, I'm going to use these models from Reaper from their Dark Heaven Legends collection, George and Gracie Zombies. Now, these are kind of cool. I've not actually had them out of the packet, as you can see, to have a proper close look at them. I mean, these are classic zombies. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him like a top hat and a little necktie of some kind, and I'm going to give her I was thinking of maybe a veil, but now I thought if I have a veil then I'm going to like cover up that beautiful face. I don't know, maybe some kind of veil that just covers the eyes. I think that might be cool. Give that open mouth. I do. So I think what I'm going to do is just, play around with the green stuff and make it up as I go along, and just see how inspiration takes me. Look at that, such a beautiful bride. The emery boards are also really good for removing any flash from your model. Just get it cleaned up before you undercoat. And then once you undercoat, you'll see all the bits that you missed and you have to do it again. So I'm just out walking Iris. Say hello, Iris. Hello. And so here we are, just visiting one of my ancestors. See, when I say my name's Trej, it's because my surname's Treasure. And yeah, so I need to make graves, but also this graveyard, if you can see, it's on a hill, and I think that's something I want to make in the model, is to actually build it into a hillside, so the Angel of Death is actually looking down from the top of the hill over the bride and groom who are lower down on the hill, something like that. But yeah, I think definitely I love the hill. I mean, look how far you can see in the distance. You can see Leeds right over there. Okay, so I'm just making a start with the green stuff now, beginning with the groom. I'm going to try and get that necktie done, then maybe go on to the hat, I'm not quite sure just yet. When working with green stuff, always have a little bowl of water to one side so you can dip your tools in and your fingers, keeping things wet so it doesn't stick to you, the green stuff that is. Also petroleum jelly, a little bit of petroleum jelly, so then the tools that you're using will run smoothly over the surface of the green stuff. I would recommend getting hold of just the your standard metal tools that you get from modelling tools, but also you can get any of the latex tools used for all kinds of like cake decorating and things like that. The latex tools are really, really good as well. Just keep moving it around until you get the shape that you want. I mean, there's no right or wrong, it's just your style. You can have straight lines or wonky lines, artistic intent and all that. Just do what you like. Something I've learned about working with green stuff is always wait for the part you're working on to set, go off, whatever you want to call it, before moving on to the next part. So I'm not going to touch the hat until the tie is set, because what will inevitably happen, and this always happens, is you'll start working on to the next bit and then you'll squish the bit you've just done. Happens every single time, guaranteed. So I'm just going to put down the man zombie and I'm going to work on the woman zombie. Sometimes you might need a little bit of assistance to see what you're doing. Damn it, got it stuck. this is me and Amelia when we first got married. So we didn't have much money, so like many people, we just went to the local registry office, just did what we needed to do to get the legal paperwork out of the way, and lived happily as married couple. And then 10 years later, we were never really happy with it just being the registry office. We couldn't afford a big ceremony, but we wanted a little bit of a ceremony that was more personal to us. So we got some friends together and we had a hand fasting in the woods, like a traditional pagan ceremony. And to us, that really was our true wedding, even though it came 10 years after our actual wedding. So we had the hand fasting ceremony. We jumped the broom and walked off to live our lives happily together. But the hand fasting ceremony, I bring it up because I think that's what I want to do with this diorama. I want my little zombie couple to be having a hand fasting ceremony. Now, they're not really in the correct position for that, so I'm going to try and just sort of bend their arms slightly so that they can be holding hands, and then when they're holding hands I can then put some kind of binding around it.
Looking at these zombies now, I feel it'd be a little bit remiss if we didn't acknowledge that the popular zombie image that we have was created by George Romero in the absolute classic Night of the Living Dead movie. Although I have to admit, I originally saw the 80s remake, which was directed by Tom Savini first. Although Tom Savini did work with George Romero in the Night of the Living Dead sequel, Dawn of the Dead. He was one of the bikers and he worked on a lot of the effects as well. He also appeared in the Dawn of the Dead remake, which was directed by Zack Snyder. He was the sheriff on the TV that was saying how to actually kill all the zombies, although you might know him better as Sex Machine in Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay, so whilst binding the two together with the piece of fabric or whatever it's supposed to be, in the process of that, I've knocked off the headband that the bride had around the top of the veil. That sort of clearly wasn't stuck securely and it's completely popped off. So I'm going to have to remake that somehow. But I was thinking, as I'm going to have to remake it anyway, and I'm now going for the hand fasting kind of feel, maybe I should do some kind of floral arrangement. That's going to be really difficult and fiddly, but I think she's worth it.
Dawn of the Dead wasn't the only sequel to Night of the Living Dead. I am of course referring to Return of the Living Dead. So this is a sequel that not as many people are aware of, which was actually written by John Russo, who co-wrote Night of the Living Dead with George Romero. John Russo had this idea for Return of the Living Dead, and so whereas George Romero went off to make Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead and so on, John Russo went off to make Return of the Living Dead, which got rewritten by Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the scripts for, well, the original script for Alien, and Dan O'Bannon went on to direct Return of the Living Dead 2. When I say that Dan O'Bannon directed Return of the Living Dead 2, I don't mean number 2, I mean TOO, he wrote and directed it as well. They went on to make another couple of sequels to Return of the Living Dead, and there's one in the works as we speak, which I'm really looking forward to. Return of the Living Dead was one of my favourite films growing up, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what the sequel is. Some of the films did actually have more of a comedic turn to them, which along the lines of like Shaun of the Dead or Zombieland. So if you like that kind of film, then definitely want to check out the Return of the Living Dead sequel, which is due out shortly.
So I had an idea of doing some gravestones as well. I did actually order some online, but they haven't arrived yet, and I wanted to crack on with this, so I decided to just make some. And I was thinking, how can I make some? And I thought, well, if I just get some EVA foam, double it up so it makes it a bit sturdier, and I can make the gravestones out of that. So that's what I did. And then I also wanted to make a tree, and I was thinking about making it just out of wire or something, then building it with clay. And then I thought, well, wait a minute, why don't I just why don't I just go into the garden, get a twig, and use that as like an armature? So that's what I did. I got a twig, used that as an armature, just added a little bit of wire onto that, just add a couple of extra branches onto it, and then I'm going to build that up with some kind of clay afterwards. But right now it is about 4 AM now, so I need to get things tidied up and put away.
What are some of your favourite zombie films? Why don't you let me know in the comments below? Do you prefer something comedic like Shaun of the Dead, or do you prefer something with a bit more of a deeper meaning like the original Night of the Living Dead? I really want to see the new 28 Years Later, I've just not had a chance to get to the cinemas yet. I know some people are like, that's not really zombies, they're infected non-dead. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments, I really do like to hear from you.
Okay, so I was doing the clay on the little tree, and then I thought to myself, why am I covering up the actual bark with clay that I'm then going to sculpt to look like bark? So I decided I'm just going to bulk out the very bottom where the base of the trunk would be. I'm just going to bulk out that part, but then the rest of it, it's already got bark. before I forget, I've got this foam insulation stuff. It's just left over from an old DIY project. I'm going to be using this to actually make the hill. I think one of them is going to be too small, so I'm going to stick them together or chop them up and stick them together in some kind of configuration, make a hill shape, and then you're going to have one higher than the other, or make a slope. Then I can have the Angel of Death a little bit higher, and then the Bride and Groom below, and have the tree next to the Angel of Death, I think. I'm going to play around with it, see how that works out.
I've always liked a good zombie film. Not just zombies, but any kind of undead or possessed film, like Evil Dead. The Deadites in that, they're not zombies, not by a long stretch, but still, they're very similar. I don't know, I mean, I'm just a fan of horror effects in general. Maybe that's why I've ended up doing this kind of YouTube channel. You know, just, I like making things and I like to see good effects that have been made in films. But yeah, the zombie effects, there's something really scary about that. You know, they look like people, but not quite like people. You know, they look like they're dead, but they're moving, but they're not rational. You can't talk to them, not like a person at least. I mean, there's all kinds of different zombie films. The Return of the Living Dead films I talked about before, in those talking zombies, but, you know, their motivations are not like people's motivations. I mean, the Return of the Living Dead, that's where they get the classic brains. That's where that comes from. So if you've ever played Minecraft and, you know, the zombies in that talking brains, well, Return of the Living Dead, that's where you've got those to thank for that. But yeah, there's something about the undead coming towards you, or the infected, whatever. They're coming towards you. You can't rationalise with them. They're going to get you. Anyway, back to the model. As you can see, I've just sort of marked out where I want to actually place the figures within the diorama. Once they were actually there though, I realised it needed something in the middle, and I thought, I know, I'll put a freshly dug grave right in there. So I just sort of roughly measured out the size of a person, so that the grave would be the right size. And not that anybody's going to do it, but if you were to actually come and measure yourself, you'd see that the grave would actually fit a person at this scale. And then just went about digging it out. Then I realised, of course, the way I'd put the two pieces together, there was a huge gap there, so I just sort of roughly filled that and then cut around it. I did leave a space here so I could put a little plaque. I want to put a plaque on it eventually with a title for it. Maybe that's something you can help me with. What can I actually name this? Something like The Corpse Bride or whatever. Why don't you leave a suggestion in the comments? I've never been very good at titles, but what can I call this diorama? So I'll cut down the edges just to give it a clear defining edge for the diorama. Probably going to paint that black. I just need to put a little bit of texture on top, like, you know, dirt kind of texture, and then that's going to be good to start painting up. Probably going to paint this separate to the actual miniatures, and then once it's all painted I can put the miniatures on top and touch up any details, blend them all together. Not long to go now. Ever watch back an old video of yourself and think, what the hell was I thinking? Anyway, there I am filling in that gap with just a bit of baking soda or bicarbonate of soda and some super glue. Really is amazing how versatile and useful that is. Then I mix up some Mod Podge with some brown, just to go over it. I put the brown in so I could actually see where I'd put down the Mod Podge. Then for texture, I was using a mixture of coriander seeds, which as you can see I just sort of ground up and sprinkled straight on, along with some peppercorn, which I also ground up and sprinkled straight on. And then finally some poppy seeds. So this is just to get a variety of textures. The poppy seeds are really great, they're like little stones. Now, some time ago, I had an idea to actually just sort of grind up some poppy seeds to see if I could dry that out and then use that as some kind of finer texture. To be honest, I'd sort of left it to one side and completely forgot about it. But this is it now, and as you can see, it's all dried out and it's kind of like a fine sand. So I thought, yeah, I'll use that for this model for another layer of texture. So we've got the coriander seeds ground and the ground peppercorn as well, and then we've got the whole poppy seeds, and then we've got the ground up poppy seeds as well. Just again, variety of different textures, and I just use the Mod Podge to actually stick that down with. I just slapped it on all over. Now I am actually going to be covering this with static grass later, so a lot of that's going to be completely pointless, but at least I know that it is going to have good coverage, so anywhere where there's no static grass you will actually get some texture. So it's like the dirt that's underneath, the dirt like you get underneath your feet in general. You know how dirt works, it's there on the ground. So I'm about ready to start painting now, and as always I'm just going to be using the cheap craft store paints. kind of the point of this channel is to show that you can just use cheap materials to make your projects. You don't need to use expensive paints, you don't need to get expensive models. Go on eBay, find a cheap model that you want to paint, buy some cheap paints and paint it. That's all you need to do. That's all you need to do to have fun with your hobby. So yeah, I'm just going to be going ahead with these, and of course the same paintbrush that I've been using for about 15 years now. It's been snapped in the middle and I had to glue it back together a couple of times. It's a Revel paintbrush. I have no idea what size paintbrush it is, but yeah, like I say, I've had it about 15 years and it is by far my most favouriteest paintbrush of all paintbrushes. The thing with the craft store paints is they're not made for painting miniatures, they're made for painting canvases and paper, that kind of thing. So you need to build up a couple of thin layers rather than just going on with one coat. First of all, you want to give it a quick wash over with watered down black or something like that. I do this even though the undercoat is already black, because partly it's going to fill in any gaps where I've missed with a spray, because I did just undercoat these with a rattle can, but also it gives it a little bit of grip for then the later layers to hold onto it, because the spray paint and the craft store acrylics, they don't always get on with each other. So I'm going to build up several layers, a little bit of dry brushing here and there, and also some of my homemade wash, which I like to call my mud wash, and that is basically just black and brown mixed together with some water. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of different kinds of zombie films out there though, something for everybody. I mean, you have like your World War Z that had a big star cast and a high budget, then you have your Train to Busan, which I don't think anybody expected that to be as popular as it was, but you know, it really grabbed people's attention. Then you have your Army of the Dead, because that was made for Netflix and released on Netflix, it's easily accessible for most people. And then, as I said, you got your 28 weeks later, days later, years later. That's a long running series. I wonder if they'll do like a 28 decades later. I don't know. I'm a physical media kind of guy, so I'm looking forward to getting the full Blu-ray box set of that later in the year. Because of the TV shows as well, I mean, you've got like your Walking Dead obviously, and then the spin-offs to that. I don't know if to talk about The Walking Dead actually, because I really did enjoy that. I'm not sure about the spin-offs. For me, if they could have just combined the spin-offs into one show, then they could have just continued The Walking Dead in that way. I don't know, what did you think about that? Again, let me know in the comments. Other TV shows, I mean, there was Black Summer, that was again on Netflix. That ran for a couple of series. That's I was actually hoping for that to carry on going, but they decided, the powers that be decided to end that. But I enjoyed that. It's definitely worth going back and checking out if you get the chance. And then there's The Last of Us, again, that's one of those, is it really a zombie film because they're infected, not undead? But you know, it's the same kind of thing, and you know, you get the same kind of vibe as you do in a true undead zombie film. Either way, I think it's well acted and well written, and you know, the effects are fantastic, so it's definitely worth watching. I mean, there's all kinds of different things to say, different tastes. If you prefer something comedic, then you know, iZombie is possibly worth checking out. Personally, I preferred the early series of that one. It was just like, you know, the different crime of the week, the murder of the week, which she was solving by you know, eating the brains and getting the memories of the people. But I don't know, as it went on, it seemed like everybody was becoming zombies and everybody getting zombie powers. But I don't know, it was one of those things. It was based on a comic book, so I guess they were copying, not copying, but using the source material and staying true to that. So I suppose if you're fans of the comics, you'll appreciate that kind of thing. And of course, you may be not actually interested in that at all, and you've just come here to see the diorama being made, so perhaps I should talk a little bit more about that. So here you can see I'm just using some of my homemade mud wash over the top of where I dry brushed previously. The dry brushing, you may have noticed that yes, I do use a brick to dry brush, so rather than use a cloth, if you just use a brick or stone, you could use something like this model where I've made the texture on it. Basically something with a bit of texture, and then you just use that directly for the dry brushing to wipe the paint off, and then you can see with the texture on the brick or the stone itself, you can see when it's actually ready to start painting, because you can see how much paint is coming off on the brick, you see. And then of course using a lot more bicarbonate of soda and super glue to fill in the gaps and get those put into position. It does tend to get a bit everywhere though, so it's good to have a separate place to actually do your model, so you can blow that bicarb all over the place and it's not, you know, not messing up your kitchen counter. And then yeah, there's a flock, and just using some super glue, not super glue, that's just a white glue, PVA glue, wood glue. They call it all kinds of different things, but it really is just the same glue, and a bit of isopropyl alcohol and water. I think it's a pterodactyl outside. On the one base I can put down some isopropyl alcohol, and then I don't know what I'm saying now, I got distracted by a pterodactyl outside. Okay.
take 2 as it stopped recording for no reason whatsoever. Technology. Right. So when you're basing your miniatures, whether it is just a miniature for gaming or a diorama, if you put down some isopropyl alcohol on top of the basing material, and then you put down watered down white glue on top of that, the isopropyl alcohol actually draws down the white glue through the other substances there, so the white glue goes through the entire thing. Just to demonstrate, I'll show you. I put a little bit of static grass onto these 2 bases, and then I'll put down the isopropyl alcohol on one of them, and I won't put any down on the other, and you'll see hopefully that the white glue gets drawn down through the one that's got the isopropyl alcohol on it, and it will not get drawn down through the one that doesn't have the isopropyl alcohol on it. So then you can see how the white glue will just sit on top of the material and it just bob about, and then anything that you put down on top of that will just sit on top of it, and it won't actually, you know, the glue won't actually penetrate the material, and so the stuff at the bottom will still remain loose. So you can use it to add more static grass on top of what's already there, or whatever basic material you're using, or you can just use it to seal what's there to stop any bits of static grass or whatever material you're using from becoming loose later. So yeah, isopropyl alcohol draws down the white glue and it seals everything, and it makes sure you get a solid bond throughout all the material that you're using to base your miniatures.
Okay, so it's all nearly done now, so thanks for hanging around and listening to me waffle on about zombie films and whatnot, and you know the drill, click like and subscribe, it really does help the algorithm to find like-minded people, and I'm not on any social media, so if you want to chat, just leave a comment. And do something creative just for the fun of it, even if it goes wrong, especially when it goes wrong, because that's how you learn. It's literally how science works, and you can only do the best that you can do, and that's good enough. It's not flawed or defective, it's what makes it unique, just like you. Remember, you're perfect just as you are, and people love you. Look after each other, and look after your pets, because they love you too. Here's the gallery.